pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Traditionally, we have an invocation at this time if, and Ruth has been gracious enough to give them. Here, Ruth. Amen. Hey, Kim, would you call the roll?
Mayor Gatway.
Here.
Alderman Caslow.
Here.
Alderman Gittmeyer. Here. Alderman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Ungerbach. Alderman Wandling.
Here.
Alderman Whitteman.
Here.
Okay, consent agenda. A motion to approve the consent agenda, or do you have?
I would move to accept it, but I have just a statement to make that April 5th minutes being there is nothing out of the ordinary other than it has fallen through the cracks. One of the meetings that Kim was gone, that it's made it back to the agenda where it should have been back in May or June. So there it's
Wasn't on that
it just
previous agenda, and we put it on this one.
exactly. So
Because
there's nothing sinister about it at all.
The
So I move that it be accepted.
amendment. Okay. All in, first, Dave, got a second? Mark?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here none, the consent agenda is approved. Public comments, Kim?
Matt Sigal.
Matt Siegel, TriStar Development, 12647 Olive Street Road, St. Louis, Missouri, 63141. Just here to speak on, in the event that we're not asked to participate at all in the old business section of Bill 2329 for Cedarstone. We appreciate the council's willingness to put us back on the agenda after 2 weeks ago's meeting. Like once again, just want to let you know we're in the audience to hear, answer questions if there's anything to discuss. We appreciate your support, and remember that when we did go through the public hearing, there was nobody here in opposition of our project. Thank you.
My name is Cheryl Bratton. My husband Larry and I live on Croon Bay Court in Inverness subdivision. A few months ago, I was called for jury duty for a capital murder trial. Had the trial gone forward, and it didn't because the defendant changed his plea to guilty, I would have been one of 12 people instructed to decide a verdict based on a lack of reasonable doubt. Along those lines, in the 8 months I've attended Darden Prairie Aldermanic meetings, the city's leadership has done little but create doubt in the minds of the city residents. And therefore, it's reasonable for you to expect citizens will continue to push back. In compliance with Missouri State Statute 89, Section 340, Darden Prairie must have a comprehensive plan in place. The last one was approved in October of 2020. And while described as a living document, the plan repeatedly states that its purpose is to serve as a guideline for P&Z and the board for the next 15 to 20 years. In other words, 2035. Last week's article in the Mid-Rivers News magazine quoted a figure of $678,000 the city has spent through the years for PGAV services and various reincarnations of the comp plan. Since 2018, the board has spent $90,000 $90,373 on its comprehensive plan. And tonight, just 2.5 years after the last revision was approved, another $65,500 plus reimbursables is part of a PGAV proposal for the Town Square Vision Committee. No one questions PGAV's reputation or expertise in the city planning industry, and certainly its fees are probably not out of line. One must question, though, whether city officials understand or care about the comp plan's role in its decision-making process. If you write another check to PGAV, residents have reason to doubt they will see a return on their investment. In particular, as aldermen, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gotway approved the 2020 comprehensive plan, then flagrantly ignored its direction in regard to the Prairie Encore, essentially wasting the taxpayer funds spent on the plan in 2020. The residents begged the prior board to comply with the comprehensive plan. This is a different board, but there's no doubt similar citizen concerns will be voiced tonight. If you vote to approve PGAV's proposal, you better believe the residents will, without exception, expect you to follow the plan. If Darden Prairie has $65,500 sitting around, especially in a city that's supposedly on the financial brink, we encourage you to spend it on a professional, user-friendly website and a sound system for this room. Sound travels both ways, and it's reasonable for residents to doubt that they've yet been heard.
Public hearings. First, public hearing, we have a conditional use permit request for a massage establishment, health and wellness provider. Approximately 0.35 acres of land, commonly known as 2676 Technology Drive, more particularly described in a conditional use application received by the city on May 30th, 2023, filed with city clerk from applicant Barbara Ann Spa LLC. Anybody to speak?
Let me interject here that this was actually put on hold at P and Z until the owner of Barbara Ann Spa shows up to answer questions for the P and Z. So, well, we can have a public comment and leave it open and not vote on anything tonight.
Correct, because we posted it as a public hearing, we have to open it, but yeah, it would be prudent to both leave the public hearing open and delay the vote on it. Correct.
So is anyone here to speak on behalf of Barbara Ann Spa LLC? Okay, since there isn't, we'll
Move to continue the hearing.
continue.
Second.
Postpone it. Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we're going to continue the public hearing for applicant Barbara Ann Spa LLC. They are second public hearing is a PUD and zoning request. Area plan for the proposed Morning Meadows RM PUD multifamily residential development on approximately 10.69 acres of land commonly known as 1600 Bisey Road, and more particularly described in a PUD and zoning request. Area plan application received by the city on July 5th, 2023, and amended on July 19th, 2023, on file with the city clerk from applicant Rawls Development LLC. Is there anyone here to speak?
Good evening. I am Adam Bear with the Director of Development with Rouse Company. Thank you for your time this evening. Last week, we presented our plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission. During this meeting, we were able to hear feedback from the commission, as well as a few folks that came and
and gave us their comments as well. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank those folks who gave us the feedback, let you know we heard you, and we're looking into the best options to address those comments. We look forward to addressing those fully at the next Alderman meeting.
Okay, so we continue the public hearing for the next Alderman meeting. Okay,
Do
we have any other speakers?
we have anybody that wants to speak at the public hearing tonight?
Me too.
yes, okay.
Maggie Biesenthal.
So it's my understanding we're not going to be discussing this development at all tonight. Are you going to be making any votes or do you want
No,
to hear
we
anything?
won't be
Okay,
Voting vote will be next meeting.
okay. I think I'll come back next time then, if that's all right.
You can speak now, I mean, if you want, but you can come back also.
Sure. I mean,
Yes.
I can speak.
Uh-huh.
I'm here to provide the voice of a homeowner in the Darden Landing subdivision, so directly across the street from this proposed development. My husband and I purchased our home in Darden Landing in 2009, so we've been city residents for some time. We want to share some difficulties that we're not sure if the Board of Aldermen is aware that we're experiencing in our neighborhood already this summer. There have been several nights this summer where homes in our neighborhood have had their mailboxes smashed or their garage doors kicked in. That's happened on at least 2 occasions. When law enforcement has responded the next day, they've let us know that they've had similar problems in Inverness and in Barrett Haven. And it seems like they're unable to address the problems in the community that exist. We are very concerned about the additional development, the scale of this development. It would probably be, it's the same size as our whole neighborhood. And it would be put on 10 acres across the road from us. That scale is going to take attention away from the resources in the community that already aren't meeting the needs of your homeowners and residents who live here now. We're also concerned about traffic backup. I'm a parent who has to get students to Prairie View in the morning, get them home in the afternoon, and try to get to work in between. And traffic on Feisey Road backs up enough that it's difficult to get in and out of our neighborhood as it is, let alone if you put the same volume of cars just a little bit down the streets. We just think that the density of this proposed development isn't right for our community, and we'd urge you to follow the recommendation of Planning and Zoning Committee and not approve that development. Thank you for your time.
Okay, no other speakers? Move to new business. Bill 2339. Entertain a motion to read Bill 2339 for the first time.
Somebody trying to take notes.
And a motion. Second by Mark, first by Mike, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. James, will you read Bill 2339 for the first time by title?
For Bill 23, and Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I do have my hands that I did not distribute to the board. My apologies. There were some, I wouldn't call it a scrivener's error. There was an update to you may recall that the plan, the application was updated to reflect proper zoning. We noticed that the originally distributed ordinance did not have updated zoning on there from R1D, R18, R1D, because it actually has been already rezoned once. So the title I'll read to you reflects the correctly worded title. And that being Bill 2339, an ordinance of the city of Darden, Prairie, Missouri, providing for the rezoning of approximately 10.69 acres of land from R1D single family residential district to RM multifamily residential district planned unit development and approving the area plan for the same. You'll notice the title had the R18, R1D, R1D, RM. So
Can't hear me.
I'm sorry, that's just my voice. It's my wife likes it. My apologies. It doesn't help for communicating to you though. So just so that everyone's clear, you'll notice that it originally, the original application did say R18, R1D. Actually, it should have been R1D to RM. That application was amended and that was what was heard from planning and zoning. The original application designation was still on the ordinance that is on your agenda. So we corrected that, which should read, and what I just read was R1D residential to RM multifamily. So that was the correction that was just distributed to the board. And that will be redistributed for the next meeting when the bill is actually second read and voted on. So
Move to postpone the second reading to the next meeting.
second,
Got a motion to postpone Bill 2339. Second reading till the next meeting, by Mike and second by Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. Postpone Bill, second reading of Bill 2339 to.
Point of order, after if we accept the next bill, mandating a different reading each meeting, do we have to continue postponing like that, or is it just assumed once we just go down the list?
until we pass that ordinance, I would recommend it.
But afterwards.
Afterwards, you do that.
Streamlined, perfect.
Okay, entertain a motion to read Bill 2340 for the first time.
Yeah, way to go there.
It's not me.
Now we're gonna blame on you. Before we read it, can we have a order of operations? I am gonna propose an amendment to it. Would that be better before we read it the first time or after?
Yeah.
Has to be after. Okay, then I move to read it first time by title only.
Got a motion to read?
Second.
Got a second by Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. James, will you read Bill 2340 for the first time?
Bill 2340, an ordinance of the city of Dardenne Prairie, Missouri, amending section 110-195 of the municipal code of the city of Dardenne Prairie by adding a new paragraph 3 to subsection A thereof and providing for the procedures for enactment of ordinances.
So a note, we talked about this a bit in workshop, and I finally found what I was looking for. 719 packet had an amendment that in 2E to change or substantial financial loss to the city to substantial financial loss to the city, or if the effectiveness of the proposed action will be significantly diminished if delayed to future. And so it was that second part. If we can add that in, that'd be great. So do we need a motion to amend, or do we?
Yes, a motion to amend will be appropriate.
Then I would move to, let me make sure I get this right. I move to include as a bullet point under 3A to include if the effectiveness of the proposed action will be significantly diminished if delayed to future meetings.
Second.
Got a second by Mark? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. We will amend Bill 2340 to include
As Mike said.
yeah, as was stated by Alderman Coslow.
Mr. Mayor, I would like clarification. Does the board intend to postpone this to the next meeting as will be our custom after the passage of this? The only reason why I ask is there's one thing that does need to be considered for an amendment. Of course, it's only necessary to amend it if the board, I guess, if the board doesn't see the emergency in doing this. It was brought to my attention by our city clerk that there are requirements of the city by statute when we do the levying of taxes on an annual basis, when we set the annual levy, that we're at the mercy of the assessor and then obviously the timing of our meetings. Sometimes we don't necessarily have time to read it 2 times to set the levy. So there's a concern there that we wanted to make sure, we can get all of that done and turned into the, proper authorities in an expeditious manner, and we don't find ourselves, backwards with the law. So, there may be times where that's fine to do it. There may be times where we need to do it in one meeting. So that was an eventuality that was brought up that may occur. I don't know if we want to add that to one of our exemptions, or if we just recognize that could come up as an emergency.
Yeah. And I am looking through, because that would be covered in my mind under the financial loss section, but as I'm reading this again, you point me to where that is preserved in the new 3A.
It's not stated in here because we didn't model it after that language. The direction received was to model this after Ferguson, and that's what this.
Okay, yeah. My preference would be that the language that we had is preserved, just the reading of 2 times that piece be included. So do we need to? I should have looked at this closer earlier. Do we need to add that back in to cover, or is there something else that you think would cover that situation?
Well, your recommendation, I think, would likely cover that situation. There's the amendment that was previously made.
But if you think that's broad enough, I'm good with it.
Because it would reject, it would basically affect the effectiveness of the action taken if he's able to do it at the time.
Okay.
Look at you, you didn't even know you did it.
Hey, I'll mess up and do something right off time. I'm good with that.
Yeah, yeah, if the attorney feels that that's sufficient, that amendment's sufficient, staff has nothing further.
Okay, so Bill 2340, it's postponed to the September 6th meeting.
Well, there hadn't been.
No, we have to vote on the amendment. Well,
What do you mean? We passed the amendment,
Yeah,
right?
I was
That's the
asking if we needed
postponement.
another amendment, but
we vote on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Too much talking.
so I would move to postpone this to the next regular meeting.
Okay, got a motion to postpone, Dave? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here none, Bill 2340 is postponed till September. Okay, got a motion, entertain a motion to read Bill 2341 by title only for the first time.
So moved.
Mike?
Second.
Dave seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Here none, James, will you read Bill 2341?
Bill 2341, an ordinance of the city of Dayton, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a deposit agreement guaranteeing land disturbance improvements with letter of credit by and between the city and Rowell's Company, guaranteeing the construction, installation, and completion of certain improvements within Willow Grove development.
Discussion or debate? Entertain a motion for postpone?
Well, this would be one of those administrative ones that we would.
Okay, just you could read it twice and pass.
I mean, a land disturbance permit is completely an administrative task. Now, the fact that we have a escrow that is part of that is part of the administrative process.
Okay, Willow Grove.
Was Walnut Grove. They've changed the name because in Charles County, I guess already had Walnut Grove.
Got it.
So.
Yeah, I apologize. I saw the company. I thought this was Morning Meadows for some reason.
Yep.
Okay.
So this was previously approved as Walnut Grove. Unfortunately, when they went to St. Charles County for if it was the quarter or if it was the people who do the streets, but whatever, they said, no, you got to change the name.
Then I would move to read Bill 2341 for.
I already did.
Oh, then I was
Second. Got a second by
Sorry.
Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here none. James, will you read Bill 2341 for a second time by title only?
Bill 2341, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a deposit agreement guaranteeing land disturbance improvements with letter of credit by and between the city of and Rouse Company, guaranteeing the construction, installation, and completion of certain improvements within Willow Grove Development.
Any discussion or debate?
Call for roll call vote.
Got a motion for a roll call vote by Dave, second by Mike. Kim, would you call the roll?
Alderman Weidling,
Aye.
Alderman Whitman,
Aye.
Alderman Gettemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Johnson,
Aye.
Alderman Kessler.
Aye.
Ordinance 2265.
I declare Bill 2341 as ordinance 2265. Entertain a motion to read or vote on resolution 373.
Who is Joel?
Maria?
Here.
Who is Joel? Vogel.
Oh, Joel, he's not, I don't think he is here today. He was here at last meeting, introduced himself.
No, just,
Yeah, he was. He was here at the last meeting. He came up.
he showed up at the last meeting because he thought he was going to be on the agenda, but unfortunately we weren't able to get him on the agenda in time with the resolution, so.
Yeah. What's the subdivision? Jeff, he lives in Chestnut Creek, down off of Bates Road. Works for, water. A water company that inspects
Water
water
towers.
sources for the
They do water tower
towers and
inspections.
things, yeah. And, he's been politically involved in several things. He ran for the water board, unsuccessfully this election. Trustee for the subdivision.
It's just the party.
So, and he came forward and wanted to get involved and requested, planning and zoning. We actually have a couple open seats.
Make a motion to read resolution 373.
Read or adopt.
Adopt, I'm sorry.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, resolution 373 is adopted. The old business. Bill 2329. Read one time on 6/21. Was requested to bring back, so entertain a motion to read Bill 2329 by title only.
So move.
Second time, Dave. I got a second by Laura. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. James, will you read Bill 2329 by title only for a second time?
Sure, Bill 2329, ordinance of the city of Dayton, Prairie, Missouri, approving the rezoning of approximately 18.24 acres of land from ND New Development District to R1D Single Family Residential District Planned Unit Development and approving an area plan for the same.
Any discussion or debate?
Move for roll call vote.
Got a motion for a roll call vote? Dave?
Second.
Laura seconds. Kim, would you call the roll?
Alderman Whitman,
Aye.
Alderman Gettemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Johnson,
Aye.
Alderman Kessler,
Yay.
Alderman Weidling.
Aye.
Ordinance 2266.
I declare Bill 2329 as ordinance 2266. And a motion, I entertain a motion to read Bill 2338 for a second time.
So move.
So moved by Dave,
Second.
second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. James, will you read Bill 2338 for a second time by title only?
Bill 2338, an ordinance of the city of Dayton, Prairie, Missouri, establishing a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest for certain municipal officials.
For a roll call vote.
Got a motion for a roll call vote?
Second.
Got a second? First by Mark, second by Dave. Kim, would you call the roll?
Alderman Gettemeyer,
Aye.
Alderman Weidling,
Aye.
Alderman Kessler,
Aye.
Alderman Johnson,
Aye.
Alderman Whitman,
Aye.
Ordinance 2267.
I declare Bill 2338 as ordinance 2267. Okay, let's move to staff communications. City attorney,
I have nothing there.
city engineer.
Yes, Mayor, just two things of note from my report. First thing is Town Square resurfacing project, STP. We have started the design process. The first thing we are going through now is environmental clearances. Next thing that we'll have be having our surveyor out on site here within the next 2 weeks, but the process and the project has started the design work. Second thing of note, and of great interest is that we have prepared the plans for the next phase, which we're calling phase 3. We'll be marking the slabs for removal and replacement in Canvas Cove, Aberdeen 1 and 2, and Chanot Village, the 3 largest remaining subdivisions. There's plenty of small ones after that, but the 3 big ones will be starting in Canvas Cove first. And people from our office will be out marking slabs so that the contractor may start their utility locates, and we anticipate their work to start at the end of September, beginning of October for the replacements of those slabs in those subdivisions. We're replacing during this phase approximately 25,000 square yards of concrete, which is approximately $1.75 million worth of slab work in phase 3. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Tom. City administrator, James.
Sure. I did want to make sure, and I apologize, I didn't read the Rivers News Magazine article that referenced $600,000 number that was supposedly paid to PGAV. To be clear, I'm familiar with that number because the number was requested how much money we've spent on consultants' plans the last 20 some odd years. That number was somewhere in the $600,000 range. Almost 500,000 of that was spent on the failed Uptown plan. PGAV did not get that money. That money went to a firm out of Florida. Again, it was mentioned earlier, not to disparage them, but they came up with a rather robust plan, but I think we've all seen in the last 20 years it didn't necessarily fit neatly into the development patterns here in Garden Prairie or even in St. Charles County. So over the last several years, PGAV has worked on a couple of our comp plans. They've also worked on a few other items for the Planning and Zoning Commission as a consultant. But no, they've not, they've gotten only a very tiny fraction of that $600,000. Like I said, most of it was spent. I don't even recall the name of the firm that they came up with the original. Yeah, DPZ. Yeah. So, which leads me into the question I'll ask the board, and obviously they can think on this as far as how they would like us to move forward. But I think it would be, I think it's important for us to get some direction as to how the board would like staff to move forward with either RFQ process for a facilitator for the Town Square Vision Committee, or moving forward with the current proposal, which again is the consultant that we've been working with. And I think what does bring value is that they have spent a lot of time doing work here within the city, working within our comp plan, cataloging the parcels and the data here within our city that they're going to need to move forward, hopefully in an expeditious manner. We know that this has been dragging on for some time, and we would like to see this get moving so that we can give our developers a little bit better direction before the next building year comes along both the Town Square, Mers Farm, technology post corridor. So I would just leave it up to the board. I would love to know what the consensus of the board is, if they would like to move forward with this contract, or if we would like to see what other options are available. And I would just say too, by the way, I think as was stated, I don't know that, I think we have some flexibility to work within this contract. Because ultimately, I think we should impress upon whomever it is that we want the committee to help dictate a little bit of more of the process than just it being dictated to us. Sorry, Alderman.
Yeah, while I understand that the number on the proposal is high, I think it comes back to what value dollar is. If we get the value, $65,000 worth of value out of an engagement with PGAV, I personally would be all for it. Whether or not this is $65,000 worth of value, I don't know. I have a pretty strong bias against the board dictating the form and function of the committee beyond what we already have. Except for, I think we do need to clarify scope a little bit more for them and what the expectations of their output is. But my expectation would be, or was throughout this, that the committee that was formed would get together and discuss what their expectations were and what they wanted, and then engage as necessary. Come back to the board and say, here's how much this is going to cost based on what we want. Here's the parameters of the proposal, and not necessarily having that dictated to them. I think this is one way to go about it, with the 2 public meetings, survey of those in attendance, things like that, having the specific meetings of that committee, without necessarily two-way dialogue, things like that. All that is one way to do it, and it's a tried and true method, but we have bemoaned before the output of those kind of engagements. I think the mayor said it many times, and I would agree with it. We don't typically in these kind of situations get the value out of it that we hope to. And I'd like to do it a little bit different this time. And I'd like to see the committee that was put together. I think we've got a solid group of people on that committee. We'll let them sit down and talk through what they think the form of the committee should be, and let them engage with PGAV based on what cadence and objectives they have coming out of this.
Ultimately, that would be my hopes of this whole committee. I mean, I wouldn't want PGAV dictating to them what they recommend or.
Well, and I'm glad for the agreement. Incredibly happy for that. What I'm talking about under this agreement is they have a very structured number of meetings, things like that. I'd like to have the committee talk to them and talk about that cadence and what kind of engagement do they want to have before we sign on the dotted line. Personally,
I guess my question on it is, did we go on for a second bid on this?
Usually, I mean, in some of these cases like this, we would normally give an RFQ process. So we would ask for qualifications from contractors, and then we would pick a contractor based on their qualifications and negotiate a contract versus an actual RFP. And part of that is because of what we're talking about right now. I mean, and I will say, if we do say that PGAV sits down with the committee and the committee comes up with all of this stuff to do, that could become $100,000 contract real quick. So once you start saying, I want 12 meetings and I want, 5 of these, 5 of those, this and that, and we want meetings with these people and these people, we want 4-hour meetings and 2-hour meetings and 12 4-hour meetings. I mean, they have a, part of their bid, so to speak, part of their quote is based on their many years of a process that they're kind of laying out. And obviously there's some flexibility to work within that process, but generally speaking, what hours are they going to spend in this room or at other community rooms, engaging people, taking in that input, and then obviously their own internal work and then what they produce, and then coming back, getting additional feedback back and forth, and how many times they do that. So I just want to make sure that we realize that. I know that's an issue that PGAV has brought in the past. That was a problem with the last comp plan. There was a quote given, and then there was a lot of revisions back and forth with the previous administration, far beyond what they had bid. And that comp plan dragged on for a lot longer than it's supposed to. So, yeah, we would have to have a conversation with them, I think, about how much give that they want to give, or if they're going to ask for additional monies for additional meetings, et cetera. But I think that, I think we also have to recognize that this group they've got, like you said, a tried and true method. I think we should make sure that we have our mark on what that method is. It shouldn't just be boilerplate. But certainly I wouldn't want it to devolve. And in the conversation I had with them at their offices, when I brought up all the points that you've made and all the points we've been talking about, they're concerned about, things becoming unwieldy, unruly, process falling apart, spending lots of time and effort that don't really produce anything. So then you spend either $65,000, $100,000, and it becomes just, kind of an unruly mess, or a product that isn't what you wanted, isn't valuable, doesn't have the value, whether it's 65,000 or 100,000. So maybe what I could see is if I could engage them a little bit further into a broader conversation about where that flexibility is, and then maybe we try to have a first meeting with the group and them. I don't know if they're going to want to do an engagement, honestly, though. I don't know if they're going to want to come in without an engagement. But certainly I can maybe get some more information about where their flexibility is. I don't know if that would be helpful.
Well, we're not Richmond Heights, for one thing.
Sure.
And I don't.
No, but
think-
people are people.
we don't have the money that Richmond Heights has with the commercial establishments that they have. I don't think we can do this on our own. I'm perfectly happy with John B's group. But I don't think we need as much of their group as what they're telling us we need. They had the pretty 3D drawings. We need those. If we're going to sell this, I know that some of you people that are here at all the meetings understand some of it, but there's other people, other residents that need to see the touchy-feely and the 3D building. So yeah, we need VA, but I don't think we need as much of them as they're trying to sell us. And I think the first meeting probably needs to be who are we gonna be? That's something that you're handling, Mike. So I think that's where it needs to start, to see when you need to bring them in. Somebody needs to moderate it, and I don't think they need to be at every meeting.
Okay. And there is a risk of things getting messy. There absolutely is. We need to recognize that. But this experiment in self-government that we have here in America is messy sometimes. And we try to do our best to guide it. We try to do our best to overcome it. But reality is that our charge is to represent the citizens. And I think we've got a very good group here, a group of professionals, a group of level-headed people that once we all get in the same room, I do expect that we'll take it seriously.
What does that mean?
My recommendation would be to schedule the first meeting and let the committee get together, select a chairperson, and to discuss how they want this engagement to look. If PGAB can be there in a paid by the hour kind of capacity to give some direction at the beginning and to call out some of these things and talk about conceptually, I think that could be valuable, but I wouldn't want to spend the consulting money that we plan to spend on it without them having some input. And keeping in mind, if we want to do this quickly, first meeting is when that clock starts ticking. So we have 6 months from the first meeting. So if we want to get this done soon, go ahead and schedule that first meeting.
And I think we've already heard also that this engagement could take 4 to 6 months, as it were, once the professionals put together this meeting and put together these meetings and set the agendas, for conversation, facilitate the conversation. I've sat in and presided over enough groups and committees and task forces otherwise. Just believe that that meeting is going to be 3 hours of not going to come to an answer of what you want. And I mean, I think you have to have somebody who's going to facilitate. I mean, the purpose of having a facilitator is having somebody who has experience in the matter help facilitate the conversation. Not that everybody's not intelligent, but everybody can't speak at once, and somebody has to facilitate and kind of get to same reason why multi-billion-dollar companies bring in people to facilitate conversations between billion-dollar executives. At some point, you need someone to come in and facilitate the conversation and get you, based on what their wants and needs are, but get you moving in the right direction. I would hate for a group of people to get together and walk away from it and go, I don't feel like we made it very far.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in real quick and add a couple comments, and this kind of goes back to something that I had stated several times over a month or two ago when this first came up, and I think that it's important to make sure that as these folks have volunteered to offer their services and time, we need to ensure that we have a very structured setting for them to come into and kind of put that rigor and structure around it. And I know, Mike, that you've talked about that with giving, some direction and kind of firm outcomes. So I think it's important to have involvement from this third party, through the process. And I do tend to agree that leaning on their expertise is an important component of that. To Alderman Wanling's point, I think that there is also a component of that where their job is to and I know they're in the audience, but their job is to sell, so if you're selling something from that perspective, having been on that side of the coin as well, you're naturally going to want to give your fullest, most robust package and most expensive package out of the gate. I don't know, and I trust that there's some due diligence from the city administrator and staff to look at that, but I would offer potentially looking, is one alternative is to look at, hey, what about, if that's the full complete package, is there another package that, or two that are similar to that may have some of the different alternatives or options or some of the staff reduced that could still support this effort, but maybe to a smaller scale. So kind of just leaning back into Alderman Wadling's point there is an alternative way to look at it. But just defer back to you guys. Just want to add a couple 2 cents in there from where my head was at with it as we have this discussion.
Thank you, Alderman. I will say just the initial conversation that we had with their offices was many of the comments that we've had this evening were a lot of the comments that I brought forth to them. And as far as what our expectations, what we'd like the process to look like, obviously they have honed a process based on what their experience is to be effective and efficient while also trying to meet our goals of being inclusive and participatory. And I also was very clear to them about, we're not looking for a, $100,000 paperweight on our desk, which oftentimes plans become. And so I really do feel, especially looking at some of the other plans from other communities, I really do feel that price-wise and scope-wise that they haven't loaded this up with any frills. And I was pretty clear that I would like to make sure that we get what we need and nothing else. That being said, where I think all of us would probably prefer to spend the money, I think Alderman Wadling's correct. We want to make sure that the residents can visualize what we're talking about. So what that looks like as far as technology-wise, graphics, 3D imaging, et cetera. But then also time, whatever time they need to invest in making sure that we have the public engagement, that we have the enough meetings to feel like people are heard, that there's enough input given at all the various steps of the process. This doesn't appear or doesn't feel at all like we're buying a canned plan from them. And I don't think we would. I don't think PGAV is that kind of company. But certainly if the if the board would like, I'd be happy to reach out to them and talk to them a little bit more about where their flexibility lies in letting this committee help craft more of the process. But I also think that that first meeting, I think the committee will be able to add their stamp to this process. But they're also going to get an opportunity of having a facilitator give them some information from their vast experience about what could make a successful process. So I think having that first meeting, I think that would be the absolute most productive for all people involved. But I can certainly have that conversation with them about how do we make this a fluid process that if the committee wants to pivot, and they did talk about pivoting, you know, at various points during the process, the committee wants to make some changes to the process, that there would be that flexibility for the committee.
Could we do something, because I understand the concerns, could we do something like schedule that first meeting a few days before our next Board of Aldermen meeting? And if it crashes and burns, then we take this up and they dictate that, give them a chance to succeed or fail.
Good idea.
I think there ought to be an initial meeting for no more than an hour just to get the committee members together and just get to know each other for one.
Mhm.
Just kind of brainstorm a little bit and, you know, depending on what comes out of that first meeting, then go from there. But I agree, there ought to be just a meeting, short one, and I'd hold it to no more than an hour.
So are we looking to have this meeting before the September 6th meeting of the Board of Aldermen?
So the sooner the better.
And are we to prepare an ordinance for September 6th meeting for PGAV, or is everything going to be predicated on what comes out of this first meeting of this division steering committee?
I would say the latter, though having first reading of something, you know, is it much work to say, put together a form that we read the first time to adopt what they have, so that we could read it once. We would be reading that 2 times, so that we would be adopting it either way on the 20th, if clearly is correct.
We generally wouldn't be doing 2 readings on a contract.
Labor Day is that Monday, so that really cuts you short.
Thus, we did September 1st or 5th, something like that. And after this first meeting, of course, the committee itself can schedule its next meetings, things like that. So we're just kicking off, giving access. So whether it's a quick get together just to
Is this Friday, September 1st before the holiday?
30%.
31st?
I'm horrible with dates because I just kind of show up at things. So if anyone has any other thoughts. Or if you wanted to poll the members of the committee and see what works for them, not a fine time request. That's an administrative thing, right? It doesn't need board action to set the meeting.
I mean, ultimately, I mean, I would imagine the committee will set its own meetings after that first meeting. Just would like to see what the consensus is of the board before we move forward. So we're going to have a meeting some point in the end of August. We're looking to have a contract on standby for September the 6th. May or may not move forward with that based on the committee. And if the committee says that they want, and if the committee says that they're going to do this themselves, are you going to let them do that themselves?
Yeah, I think if that's the decision of the committee, it is not my intention to be heavy-handed as the Board of Aldermen or the city with the committee. was out there as a autonomous self-directed committee, with the objectives that the board gives, but we have to trust the process. And I've heard a lot from up here, mayor said many times too, not the city doesn't need to be seen as driving this. The city doesn't need to be seen as the one that's doing this.
Well, I mean, I will remind you that, I mean, it is the Board of Aldermen's purview to be steward of the citizens' tax dollars. So if the citizens decide don't want to move forward with the committee, or they want to go forward with a different group, or they want to go on to RFP, spend 100K on bigger plan, you'll make sure that doesn't happen.
I think that if the committee comes back and says we want this $250,000 plan, the Board of Aldermen will probably say, let's tone it back a bit. We're still.
But I'm just wanting to know at what level is the Board of Aldermen going to provide guidance? Or we're going to let this be, I mean, these are things that need to be understood. Otherwise, we're calling a meeting with zero agenda, zero guidance, zero anything. I mean, I think some people may be disappointed with that process.
I would open up the floor because I want other perspectives on this. I have my own thoughts.
I thought this was supposed to be a collaboration with residents and professionals and people volunteering. Then when you get the scope of things, it's more of a structured agenda, and it doesn't seem like it has the collaborative feel. That was the essence of why this was first started.
I would say let's, as the mayor said, let's get our first meeting together, put it out as a welcoming introduction meeting. To find out what they're gonna do. And just go from there.
Yeah, I'd like to add too, I think, the word, meet and greet and welcome and introductions, definitely come to mind with the first meeting. I mean, kind of going in, heavy with, big decisions is, you're going to have to make some on the first meeting for sure. But I mean, I think I see this as we're offering the committee a resource, as the board to support the actions there. Is that the way everybody else is kind of seeing this? I mean, I guess I'm having a hard time kind of understanding the opposition to, or I guess the idea that there is no structure to it. So I see this as, a resource to offer the committee and say, here is, what the city is, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in and offering your time and expertise to help us develop and grow as a city. We have this company that we've teed up, and here are some resources that they offer. We welcome your thoughts and opinions. Is that kind of what everybody else is thinking too? I wouldn't foresee declining, a substantial resource like that, but that's sort of how my thought was: is meet and greet and then have that. So I see Alderman Costello nodding. So I just wanted to make sure we were kind of on the same plane here, because I think it's really important to have that set structure of some sort under there, but still, be able to stimulate the collaborative efforts and thoughts of the folks. So anyway.
So I just heard now we're having a meet and greet with these guys teed up. So is this meet and greet? Are they going to make a decision at this meet and greet to engage somebody? Or is this more than a meet and greet? This is an actual meeting where they're going to set the agenda for the next meetings and the process, or whether or not they're going to have a facilitator and who. I mean,
I'm not driving. I'm trying to understand, because I'm hearing a few different things. So I apologize if I made anything more confusing. I'll defer back to Alderman Costello.
I would agree, and I think that what the mayor had spoken to before satisfies all of these things. A meeting, now, I don't know if I would constrain it to an hour, because I think that the get to know each other portion of the meeting, depending on how talkative folks are, could be quite substantial. But then you will have to take care of a little bit of business, electing a chairman, discussing cadence of meetings or when everyone's available and coming to a consensus on that. And then at a high level, talking about what the structure is. So those three things in my mind would be the objective of the first meeting. And I would love to have PGA be there, because as Alderman Whitman said, there is very little chance in my mind that that substantial resource will be declined. I think it would just give them an opportunity to refine the scope, refine the expectations, and then come to something else.
Again, if you're having this board get together and dictate the cadence, and which means also number of meetings, et cetera, that also changes the scope and changes the price.
Well, what I would say, what I said earlier was, I would ask BGAV if they could come in and do an ad hoc for an hourly rate to provide initial consult and initial direction, and then based on the feedback, develop a scope of work that more closely aligns me, say, the culture and expectations of that board itself or that committee. That would be my thought. And then if they would bring that back to the Board of Aldermen, we'd say, here's what it looks like. Now, if it's gonna take a long time to put those numbers together, maybe we bump that meeting up so that there's enough time before the sixth meeting. That's all time frame stuff that would be on you, what those lead times are.
I mean, by the time we have a meeting, whenever, if we can get that meeting together at the end of August, GAV, I'm sure, I mean, we have an engagement with John B now for an hourly rate. So if they came in and listened to the conversation and then came back with a new scope, you're talking about at least a week or so or longer for them to retool their scope. And then does that come back to the board or does that come back to the committee?
I think
Obviously it's going to have a different price tag.
Price wise, it'd have to come back to the board.
Well, but is the committee going to endorse it before it goes to the board requesting additional funds? You see how hard this is without a facilitator? This is with 7 elected officials.
Yeah, and normally this would be the chairperson would handle this kind of stuff, but we don't have a chairperson. I think once we have a chairperson, have some more substantive conversation.
I mean, but the board ultimately is going to sign off on these contracts. I mean, I didn't know what the board's expectation is. Because we're talking about the purpose for not engaging them now is because you want them to listen in, retool the scope, which will change the price. I just need to know is the next step, because it may fall between meetings as well, is the next step then going back to another meeting of this group, who will then endorse or not endorse a scope and price, then comes to us for approval, you for approval, and then we're ready to go with something.
I would leave that, I would give that to the committee for their feedback.
They're going to ask the board, there's going to be a question back. They can give their feedback, but then it's going to come back to you. They're going to want to know what the expectation is. Are they going to wait around for another approval? There's a scope of money that they're going to be working within that we're saying is okay. Theoretically, I don't know. But there's a lot of decisions this board will have to ultimately make, allocating the money, appropriating it, signing contracts, et cetera, which will push us probably into October.
It kind of feels like cart before the horse, and we're trying to make those decisions or work on hypotheticals, which are very likely, but the details, so that the nuances that come out of that committee can change those decision points significantly. I think we need to schedule a meeting, get them together. And if we have to schedule 2 meetings, say we're going to have one that's really for you guys to get to know each other. And then a week later, let's get together and do a little bit of business. Whatever, we just need to get the committee together and get them rolling in self-government. That's my thought.
I think you need to have some expectations at that first meeting. Calling a group of 10 to 12 people together that got either mission statement or expectations of what's expected and come back at that second meeting and let everybody come in with what they think their mission statement is, what they think their objective really is.
Give them homework to, I would agree. I think the two concrete things that have to come out of that is a chairman has to be elected, and then they have to identify the cadence of meeting that works for them. I think once you get there, you can actually get to work. But then I agree, if we, and maybe this is something we asked for from PGAB, is what are the basics for successful engagement? And mission statement would be a really good one, and say, hey guys, when 1 week we're coming back, I want you guys to review these, look at these, and these are the discussion topics for the next meeting. Be prepared to jump in on them. Is that kind of what you had in mind, or? I'm definitely only one person here, but my recommendation is to schedule that first meeting, get them together, them working together. Ask PGAB to come in and provide at least a little bit of guidance, some starters, then let them dictate.
I agree with that if that's what you want. You're the one that's going to be on the committee. So it's that point, I think we have to allow you to do that.
I think that you get a group of folks coming in that nobody knows each other. I don't care if you have 2 or 3 meetings. It's going to take some time for them to really come together to get that momentum going, to get that, to start to work together, so to speak. I think they're going to need some leadership and direction. And I think that PGVA, I'm sorry if I'm getting the acronym wrong, that's their purpose and that's what they serve. And I think it's going to be really important. Just having, as we all probably have, you get a group of folks in a room that nobody knows each other and there's no facilitator. It's going to be challenging. And I think that having them engaged, and my 2 cents is having them engaged early on is going to be important.
So a question for clarification in your mind, do we execute this scope of work that they put forward, or do we bring them in on an hourly ad hoc at the beginning?
My personal opinion on this is that we bring them in and offer it to them as a package of support that the board has come together, or that the city is offering rather. And if there is if they review it and accept it, great. But if there are some concerns or additions, then potentially look to review that. I just really think it's better just to present it as a resource for them, and I think that most folks will probably accept the resource. I going through and revising it and I don't know, it's I'm defer to you, Alderman Costello.
My main concern here is limiting this to 4 meetings. Now, what that actually looks like, if it's 4 guided meetings and then they have outlines for other meetings that are off, so we save the money. Having 4 touch points between the committee over a 6-month period seems really light to get the work done.
I agree completely. It seems like a very rigid schedule, and I was surprised. It was one of my takeaways is the steering meetings. There's 4 of them. In the public meetings, there's only 2. So it'd be good to have some flexibility.
So, and I don't want to speak for the, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
guess my question to you is, we see a price tag of $65,000 now, having multiple meetings. What's a cap you're gonna put on this? How much money are we gonna spend?
It's a good question. I think James has asked that before. I was surprised because I expected more of a $30,000 high end on this kind of engagement if it is citizen led and we're just having somebody there that holds hand through. I understand the extra value that they're adding, but if it went over 65,000, I probably had my head rolling in the street somewhere.
I mean, I think, again, this isn't we're not paying $65,000 for someone to sit and facilitate 6 meetings. There is a tremendous amount of work that's going to be done, whether it's graphics, the design work, the layout work, everything that will be done to help make these meetings if not just run efficiently, but make them very effective in both engaging and conveying a vision that people can either, say yes or no to. I mean, I'll just tell you, I've done over the last 20 years, doing comp plans, vision plans, master plans, parks master plans, 3 downtown master plans in Ferguson. I mean, I know everybody has it in their mind, like, this would be great. Let's have a meeting every week. People work, people have kids, they have sports. You tell this committee, like, we're going to meet every Wednesday, or not every Wednesday, every Tuesday. We already all meet every Wednesday, every Tuesday. That'll last about 3 weeks, and somebody will miss, and they're not going to show back up, and they're like, this is stupid. You need to have every meeting be jam-packed with as much information as possible, be effectively facilitated and run to get the information to the people making on the committee that'll make the decisions. They'll have their homework to be done, outside of meetings. This won't be just, touching them 4 times and then it's over. There'll be a considerable amount of technical work being done between the meetings, also engagements of developers and conversations, otherwise, et cetera. So I think, and then again, in the 2 public meetings, I mean, you're talking about 2 large scale public engagements, poster boards, conversations, everything. I think you can ask for more of that, and I think we can probably put more of that together, but I think the process should dictate that. I think if you're having the meeting and you have an effective meeting where you get good turnout, you get the information, you get the data points, and then they come up with something, and we push that out to all of the different communication mediums, we're able to engage people in public meetings, and people are liking what they see, and we start to see a consensus form. You don't have to have 8 meetings. And I think that's the point. Now, just like with the comprehensive plan, that might have been a different subject, but they went back over and over and over and over again. But I think that was an issue of being dictated to by the administration. In this case, if they're hearing the residents, that's what they're keen on doing. And what they should be producing then should be the residents saying, yes, you're in the right direction, no, you're in the wrong direction. So, I mean, I think the process should dictate the number of meetings and the scope to some extent. Obviously, also the committee themselves could. But I also think we're all sitting here trying to talk about, 12 or 10 people. I guess we ended up with 10 people. We're trying to dictate to them right now, or at least imagine what they think is enough meetings. They may think that 2 meetings a month is plenty until we get some feedback. They may think that that's too much or too little. I don't know. But I think with the engagement that PJV is proposing, there's still plenty of room to work within that. I think they've given us a framework that they think will work. But as they said, they were willing and interested in pivoting based on changing conditions, either from the committee or if things are working or not working. So
I think we might be saying a lot of the same stuff, because I would agree dictating the number of meetings, things like that is exactly what I was pushing against, but there was the vocalization of flexibility. Before we adopt something that puts it black and white, though, I'd like to get their feedback so that everyone's on the same page. Would you mind coming in? Everyone on the committee. Would you mind coming in and talking about that at the first meeting with the committee? Because I think that's good groundwork, and your experience and just what you said right there will help facilitate that.
There's a reason why staff members don't get involved in these. That makes them short-term staff members. That's why we hire consultants, because they leave after the blood's been shed. So, I mean, I don't have a problem. Letting people know, I guess, my thoughts on the process. I'm interested in hearing what their thoughts are, obviously what the residents' thoughts are, but ultimately the person who's gonna be facilitating this really should be the one that is having that engagement. And that's why, I think where Alderman Whitman's going with this is that. And I can convey this to PGAV. We can change the scope before we sign anything with them. Should make sure that there's clarity in the scope of services, that it needs to be flexible with the potentially changing needs and desires of the steering committee. The steering committee may all get together and say, hey, this is perfect, and it works out just the way that they planned, or they may have a totally different idea. But I think that they need to go into it with somebody helping them.
So it may be,
Having a meet and greet's fine. I'm just saying before you have a meeting where people, because we're talking about meet and greets, but then we're also talking about electing chairman and then picking consultants or scopes or cadences of meetings. So we're already setting meeting dates and a calendar or anything like that. That's all going to change greatly based on the consultant. So, I just think
okay,
if it's
just,
without the consultant, you just really can't set those things.
then just the chairman. That would be one, to get it off of the Board of Aldermen's plate and off the city dictating their own path. That's my main concern there.
You dictate the chairman, or meet together to have a chairman.
Well, isn't that, that's the beginning of the committee, is they have to elect a chairman so that chairman can schedule and take care of those administrative tasks so the committee can function, right? Or are we saying we have to wait until we choose a consultant for them to choose a chairman? Am I doing it soft?
They can choose.
You can choose a chairman whenever you want. Well, I don't know if everybody wants to get together for an hour or two out of their night so they can pick who gets to be
Well,
who gets to be called Mr. Chairman or Mrs. Chairman or Mrs.
well, it's not just being called something, it's them having the ability to function. Right now, they can't schedule a meeting.
We can schedule a meeting.
No, but my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I would give $1,000 to the chairman if he's actually going to handle the administrative tasks, and they're not going to call me to do it.
Right.
And I would say in my experience, typically when you have a committee such as this, they do not have any separate independent administrative authority other than to preside over the meeting.
So it is still on the city to dictate the meetings and the meeting schedule and everything.
It's city resources. Let me, just to say this.
We'd like the chairman to do it, though.
In terms of the number of meetings, they can have as many meetings as they and our budget will allow, but in terms of PGAV's contract, their schedule is here are the meetings we will attend. They can have meetings without PGAVs. So if PGAV comes in with stuff for them to review, and they want to have a separate meeting without them to continue to review it. It isn't dictated by.
Yeah.
But in terms of what the chair's authority is, it truly is just presiding.
Okay. And who manages that from the city's perspective? Is that all within the executive function?
Typically, yes. So from the city administration. Or delegates.
Or if they want to do it, I'll give $1,000.
Okay. Then maybe
So what's going from here, man? We're gonna call a meeting, right?
Don't look at me, I don't make these decisions.
Come on. To the city administrator, well, you've talked this out. What was the decision?
I don't make the decisions here.
I'd learned anything in city government, it's when it's all said and done, there's always a whole lot more said than done. So,
So I would put forward very succinctly, we move forward with scheduling the first meeting of this committee with a directive that they are to get together, discuss their expectations and what they believe the committee is, and to discuss the PGAV proposal.
Board okay with that?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
All right. Got that, James?
Yeah.
You got anything else? Alderman,
Yes, I would just like to go on record saying that Ms. Bratton stated that in 2020, I voted, Alderman Johnson voted for the comprehensive plan, which was incorrect. I was not on the board in 2020.
I also want to speak to one of the comments made, specifically with comment made about if we're going to spend 65.5 on a engagement with PGAV, we should probably spend that on the website, audio visual systems in this room. I think that those are not mutually exclusive. I know there's been some talk and discussion about the website update, making that more clear. And also, I'd love to see, I would be supportive of some money into making this more usable for residents.
as far as the website goes, the company that did the website, we have a free redo come September. So we
Oh,
will
nice.
be redesigning the website come September with something a whole lot more user friendly.
Who's working on that with them?
That will be. That will be,
We,
I mean, ultimately, everybody will be weighing in, but yeah.
okay. I got a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a motion here, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chat meeting is adjourned.
I want to make a suggestion.